Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all doing well and looking forward to a nice long weekend. I want to congratulate everyone on doing a wonderful job overall in adapting to hybrid learning and helping us keep the school open. You all have done so many great things. I just see so many examples of physical distancing, mask wearing, a lot of great effort in making this work, and I congratulate you and thank you for everything you've done. I will say, I think it's worth reminding ourselves as a community, when you're doing something well and succeeding, often you let down your guard. And I've also seen a couple examples of that, where people have become a little careless because things have gone so well. So the analogy I will use, or analogies, are in academics, athletics, and the arts. So if you're doing really well in a class, you got a 98, you start to skate a little bit, and on your next test, you don't do so well. Or if you're in a basketball game, you got a 20-point lead. Psychologically, you think you've got the game won, and you let down your guard, and what do you know? Your opponents come within a couple points of you, and you got to redouble your efforts. Or perhaps you're playing in the orchestra or performing in one of the plays, you're doing really well in the piece that you're working on, and all of a sudden you drop a line that you've never forgotten in several weeks, or you miss a note that you've never missed in a couple weeks. So what I want to talk today about are going back to the basics and some reminders about the very basic things we all need to do, each and every one of us. We need to double down. We've done really well, but we need to go back and redouble our efforts and take the lead in the basketball game again, get back to a 98 in that class, and get back on the same sheet of music with everyone so that we can keep the school open and keep everyone, more importantly, keep everyone healthy. So the approach to keeping the school open in the pandemic comes down to a couple things. First, you're all doing the screening. Again, well done. Keep up the good work. Don't forget to do this every morning. This is a great habit to build. We're flexing sort of our community health muscle by doing all of these things, and answering these questions as a regular daily reminder about the kinds of things that a human being would see if they are potentially infected with the COVID-19 virus. So keep doing the app and taking it seriously. The masks. Keep up your diligence with the masks, and I'll go into detail on this one a little bit more. I do think we need to do a lot better in this regard. We need to maintain a distance of 6 feet at all times. And I would ask that as you're going outside and hanging out with your friends, again, the way this is phrased is that you wear a mask if you can't maintain a safe distance. And that's a big if. When we're outside, we can always maintain a distance of 6 feet. So spread out, keep the masks on, but if you're going to take a mask break, please do. It's really important that you do. Be outside, be separated by 6 feet. And then put those masks back on. And I'm seeing a ton of that, so thank you guys. Fresh air. So it's important that we're getting a lot of fresh air. So keep going outside. I'm glad the windows are open, and we're going to keep that up even as the winter months come along, so that we get plenty of fresh air in the rooms and going outdoors. And then, of course, keeping the windows open. So this is a slide that was shared with multiple constituent groups, but starting with the Medical Advisory Board and the Board of Trustees. This is just a reminder that we are requiring masks. I know that goes without saying. The mask must cover your nose and your mouth. It should fit correctly. I've had a couple people ask if I'm inside and alone in the hallway, can I wear my mask under my nose? And unfortunately, the answer to that is no. We've got to have the masks on at all times unless you're outside. Just, again, go outside. Get a break, get some fresh air. It's critical that you do that. Again, I'm not seeing any neck gaiters or bandanas, so no worries there. But again, keep up the good work. And if you forget your mask, we've got them in the front office, so don't stress about that. Don't come into the building, though. Just wait at the front or ring the bell, and we'll bring a mask to you. And I just want to show you a little video that I got from CBS News. This is about how we need to be careful because of this virus being airborne. Oops.
But I do want you to sort of tell us, set up where we are right now. What do we know about the way this virus might spread through the air?
So what we know right now is that it is this SARS-CoV-2 virus that leads to COVID-19 can be spread in sort of aerosols and droplets that come out of your mouth. We normally think of diseases, coughing and sneezing. In this case, just speaking, you produce thousands of aerosols. And so these aerosols basically can float through the air, and the droplets, the aerosols sort of behave like cigarette smoke. The droplets will settle quickly to the ground within 6 feet. And so we're very interested in the aerosol part because these are the ones that can build up in the air and lead to people inhaling them and becoming sick.
Great. And then I'm going to turn to Lindsay to finish it up about masks, because everybody has a lot of questions. And I'm just going to have it as an intro to this. We know from epidemiologic data that countries that use masks have fewer infections with coronavirus, with fewer COVID-19 infections. They seem to be getting their arms around the problem better. But that's sort of indirect evidence because they could be doing other things. We also know in the United States, in Missouri, there was a case that was reported by the CDC that back in May, there were 2 hairdressers who turned out they were sick. They had COVID-19 and they were seeing clients over about a week. They weren't wearing masks and they saw 139 clients, and the number of people who got symptomatic COVID-19 was 0. They were able to test about half of them and none of them had the virus. So that's really good evidence that the masks are doing some good. And incidentally, one of the hairdressers went home and was not wearing a mask at home and infected 4 people she was living with. So they're sort of the controlled experiment you would never do in real life. Lindsay, tell us about masks. What's the evidence that they really do work?
Well, there was another study I want to point out looking at different states and localities in the U.S. which implemented mask mandates at different times, and they found that that did have an effect on the number of cases. There was a slowdown in the number of cases. They bent the curve after implementing those mask mandates at different times. So masks work because they physically trap the virus. So if you happen to be sick and you're wearing a mask, it prevents the virus in those droplets and aerosols from escaping. Maybe a few of them escape, but a lot fewer than would be otherwise. If you're wearing the mask and you are in an environment where there's lots of virus in the air, the mask can block viruses in these droplets and aerosols from getting into your nose and mouth. And the way masks work is they're not like a sieve. It's not like a sieve where you put your pasta in and it catches the pasta and the water goes through. The virus is small, but it's in droplets and aerosols that are larger than the virus itself. So we need to worry about blocking those. And the way that the mask blocks those, again, is not by having them too big to fit through the holes, because we know that there are holes that are bigger. But what happens is that if you imagine that you're running through a very dense forest, and the trees are spaced closely enough that if you're going slowly, you can walk slowly around the trees. But if you're trying to run full speed through that forest, you can't follow the path around the trees. So that's what's happening with the viruses. They can't follow the airflow around the fibers in the mask. They end up crashing into the fibers and they get removed.
Okay, so it's important also that we maintain physical distancing. And you guys have done a nice job. I am seeing quite a bit of clumping going on at some of the breaks and at lunch. So I just want you all to redouble your efforts. Please spread out. If you're masked, you can be a little closer together, but it's the safest thing to do is be 6 feet apart and masked. Okay, so some other ways that we can mitigate or reduce risk off campus. So avoid large gatherings, especially indoor events. you should wear your mask around your friends, even and especially in cars. So if you're seniors and you're going to lunch with one another, you should have your masks on because you're in an enclosed space with somebody. And the time period is generally around 15 minutes. The scientists are telling us that around 15 minutes of exposure is what would likely lead to an infection, but it could be less. So it's just safer to wear the mask if you're in a car together at each other's houses or similar. Again, stay distanced. Go outside and bundle up. It's going to get cold, but we, as human beings, we're inventive, and we've created these things called coats and sweaters and hats and gloves and mittens, and they keep us warm. So there's no reason that we can't prepare to spend more time outside even when it's cold. Look out for each other. I definitely don't want a culture where all we do is look and point fingers at somebody else's wrongdoings. At the same time, if someone's making a mistake, there's a way to, in a dignified way, point out the mistake and ask them to comply with the guidelines that we have in place. And if somebody just forgets their mask or forgets to stay distance, just a gentle reminder. It was pretty neat. I saw a couple people running as though they were going to give each other a hug, and they caught themselves and avoided the hug and still gave each other a meaningful greeting. And this one's really important, guys. Remember that we have people in the community who are high risk. They may be students, they may be parents, they're faculty and staff that are high risk, and particularly grandparents. So even though you may not get sick or may not get sick badly, you may, through your own carelessness, give it to someone else who could get quite sick. That is one of the difficult things about COVID-19 is that if somebody is infected, there is a period of time where they're asymptomatic, they don't know they're sick, and they could be spreading the disease to somebody else. That's why we've got to wear the masks and stay distanced. It is to protect ourselves, but it's also about protecting other people in our community as well. And then one kind of final thing here, social media is not the problem. So if you're somewhere where people aren't masked and are close together or indoors, and something gets recorded and posted to social media is not the problem. Not doing the right thing is the problem. So, your mistakes being recorded, that's not the fault of social media or the person recording you or the person reporting you. It's your fault. You should do the right thing. So protect yourself and therefore others. Okay, so I want to switch gears here. Again, just a reminder, wear the masks, wear them properly, stay distanced, both here at school and at home. Wash your hands. I have had quite a few people tell me that they're very impressed when they see you all going to lunch, that everyone uses the hand sanitizer, but I do think it's important that you all are washing your hands multiple times a day. Avoid touching your face, your eyes, your nose. And remember, taking the mask on and off by the loops. Try to avoid touching the front of it. So now I want to talk about how we built this hybrid model and why we built flexibility into the system and why we didn't. So why do we build flexibility into our educational model? One reason, to help stop or slow the spread of this disease. That's it. We are looking out for the community's health. And some reasons we didn't create flexibility. We didn't want flexibility so that students could wake up, quote unquote, late, roll out of bed, and attend a virtual class 1 minute later. We didn't create flexibility so that you could take assessments at home, but come to school for other reasons. And we're seeing an uptick of that in some places. And we didn't create flexibility so you as students yourselves could decide to go remote. That has to be a decision that's made as a family, and again, should be a health and safety decision, not a convenience decision. How did the flexibility come into existence? So many school leaders, faculty, and staff sacrificed their summers, built this hybrid model. It took a lot of work. And again, we did it to help you remain safe and healthy, our faculty and staff to remain safe and healthy, your family members to remain safe and healthy, your grandparents to remain safe and healthy. I want to point out that faculty have reinvented themselves twice this year, as have you, by learning to teach in this hybrid model and sometimes in various classrooms with different technology around the campus. So the point is, this is a lot of hard work. We didn't do all this hard work so that you could just on a whim decide to stay home and take a virtual class. So what we'd like to do is ask that unless it's for a health reason, you come to school. But what should you do? What should students do? Stay home if you're sick or if you have any symptoms that resemble those of COVID-19. Stay home. Stay home if you fear getting the virus, but get parental permission and communicate with your advisor, Mrs. V, and the admin team. And don't flip-flop going back and forth between virtual and in person unless there's a good health reason to be partially virtual and partially in person. The school and the parents and your parents need to know where you are, so don't be deceitful. That's really important. Don't use this system that was designed to improve public health as a way to ditch out on your responsibilities and deceive others. Okay, now shifting gears to another contentious topic. We have an election coming up. Election season is upon us. We have a national presidential election. In New Jersey, we're electing a senator as well, in addition to multiple other issues. So I think it's really important that we take a few minutes and talk about how we conduct ourselves at all times, but especially in moments like this in our history. So first and most importantly, it's important that as citizens you get involved. Don't sit out any elections. It's your duty as a U.S. citizen to get involved. And for those of you that are 18 and can vote, you got to go vote. In New Jersey, you're going to have to vote by mail, but you've got to vote. You can get involved in other ways. Campaign for people. You can do community service. You can write your senators, congressmen, representatives, those people that represent you in government. There are issues that matter to you. You should communicate your feelings to those people that represent you in our government. It's also important to talk about things, to debate things, to discuss things, to analyze things, to think about things, and to listen. Listen to others. Take in what you're hearing. You're going to need to consult multiple sources for your information. But a couple things you can't do: you can't insult others, you can't demean others, you can't yell, you can't curse, and you can't belittle other people. Here on the battlefield of democratic philosophies, it's important that we're able to talk, debate, discuss, analyze, think, and listen in respectful ways. It's also important that you consider your timing and the social context if you're going to have a tough conversation. Should other people really be around? Has the person that you're about to talk to just had a bad moment? Are they having a bad day? Is this really the best timing to confront them about one of their political views? It's also important that you set some ground rules with each other, and we'll be doing a little bit of this prior to the election. Mr. DG and the social studies team are already planning for the kind of conversations that they can have, appropriate conversations that they can have in history and social studies classes, and they'll be setting some ground rules as well. Be respectful of the views of others and of them as human beings. Remember, we're all human beings. We're all fighting the good fight. We're all working hard. We all have people that we love. We all have ideas that we're passionate about. No one is better than anyone else. We're all human beings and we all deserve respect. I want you to try to imagine why they think other people think and feel the way they do. There are good reasons for the ways that people think and the things that they do. When you're talking about this stuff, when you're getting into debates and things, stay calm. It's really important that you don't lose your cool. All parties should be prepared to disengage and quote-unquote move on respectfully. So if you get to a point where you're not really getting anywhere with the conversation, and listen, you're not going to convince everyone of your point of view. That's okay. You have to be able to move on respectfully. You also have to respect that you can't convince someone to join you in thinking the way you do, and that's okay. There's a difference, though, between honoring differences in political opinions and allowing someone else to be disrespectful, hateful, aggressive, or mean. That's not okay. So you can be an upstander and politely call out that kind of activity. And if you're struggling a little bit and you need some help, if a classmate or community member is disrespectful or hurtful, consider what you might do to stand for others. And if you're not equipped to do this calmly and respectfully, call on a teacher or administrator for some help, okay? And then on November 4th, please don't be a sore winner or loser. We should all win and lose with dignity every day. Every day we should win and lose with dignity. A coach, an athletic coach, one time talked about their team over celebrating, a home run or a touchdown or something like that, or a three-pointer, or game winner or something. And the way that the coach phrased it is, we should always act like we're used to winning. And that means that we're dignified when we win. And we should be okay when we lose. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, I heard him speak one point, and he talked about a camp that he went to as a kid, and the person questioning him asked him what he learned from that camp experience, going off to camp in the summer. And he said he learned to lose with dignity. So I think it's really important that as a community on November 4th, that we privately celebrate if our issue or candidate has won. That of course is okay. It's fine to be happy about that, but not to rub someone's face in it. And if your candidate lost or your issue's lost, it's also not okay to start being aggressive with other people. So I do expect that we have a dignified run-up to the election and a dignified follow-up. And that's the simplest ground rule there is. We need to treat each other with dignity and respect, and we'll have a strong community as a result. So thank you for your time today. I hope you all have a great 4-day weekend. I'm sorry to take so much of your time, but I wanted to get all of these things out there and do some reminders and set some ground rules for the next couple weeks.